Hello, welcome to the live. Nice sunny day today. I just thought I'd have a little bit. I've just been reading something a bit ad hoc. I wasn't going to do a live, but I decided to do one because it's such an interesting topic. I'm just reading in Black Box Thinking about when we try and solve a problem. Would you go top-down thinking? In other words, like employ your rational thought and try to iron out the problem before you actually see any results. Like, in other words, design it end to end, or a bit like what we were saying yesterday when we were talking on the live yesterday about using agile methodologies, which is feature release testing. So what we've got is, do you start with top down, everything top down, I think this, rational thought, or bottom up, which is basically testing for failure. So agile is like based on fail early. And there's a section in this book that talks about it. Right, there was starts off with the company Unilever making I think it was washing powder, right, over in Liverpool, which is not. I'm in Manchester, so it's not too far. And they had this kind of nozzle right at the start of it. You can see I don't want to lose that page because I need to go back to that. But you see all them nozzle designs. What the top one is the nozzle that what they do is they feed chemicals at high pressure and steam through that nozzle. And you end up with like an effluent steam. And then a powder that drops out, and they collect the powder, and that becomes the washing powder. But they kept jamming, and they had fucking experts, designers, engineers on it. And then they ended up giving it still didn't get much better, so they gave it to a team of like biologists, I think, who literally just went bottom up. They literally went, right, let's just think of any old shape. Like, look at all the different shapes there. Right, they went for any old shape and just went, you know what? We're just going to test them all and see what happens. And that's what they did. So they started to test from bottom up rather than, trying to use your too much logic to think, no, that can't work. It's got to be this way. It has to be this way. Let's not do it like that. And in the end, after 45 or whatever, I don't know whether it was 449 failures, they ended up with this weird shape at the bottom there. Right, that's what did it. Nothing like the design. Well, all these different ins and outs and stuff. And they only got there because they were prepared to use what is called cumulative selection, which is essentially the same as natural selection. So I'm just going to read a few bits out of here that I picked out, because there's some, really big names that this is Matthew Sayed, who's quite a intelligent dude, but there's some big names here that have sort of picked this out. It just says, it turns out, however, that there is a profound obstacle to testing, a barrier that prevents many of us from harnessing the upsides of the evolutionary process. It can be summarized simply, although ramifications are surprisingly deep. We are hardwired to think that the world is simpler than it really is. And if the world is simple, why bother to conduct tests? If we already have the answers, why would we feel inclined to challenge them now? So, if we think the world's simple, why would we bother to conduct tests? I think there's a sense of ego there. Like, people don't like failure. The idea that you fail, learn from mistakes and improve, don't like it. And that's probably a natural thing. Maybe a bit of ego there, just, we all know people fear pain. If you've got a chance of failing or succeeding, they'll the upside, you know, the success has to be, like I said in Daniel Kahneman's book, the upside has to be 1.5 to 2.5 times the downside in order for someone to take the risk. Because we fear failure. So I think there's an ego, but a genuine fear. The next bit, this tendency to underestimate the complexity around us is now a well-studied aspect of human psychology. And it is underpinned in part by the so-called narrative fallacy. The term coined by the philosopher Nassim Nicholas Taleb, great, like Black Swan and everything, his books, and then studied by the Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman. As we know, you know, it refers to our propensity to create stories about what we see after the event. So in other words, we're very good at analysing events after the event, but we're absolutely shit. Even the best sort of pundits in like sports like football, and you know, they're no better at predicting a result than the average layperson, you know. So cumulative selection, I mean, there's been examples here. If I just skip back a few pages, there was one about, you know, I think it's saying Richard Dawkins tried to do a test, the blind watchmaker, where he invites considering a monkey to type a single line from Hamlet and see how long it would get. You know, he's got 27 letters on a keyboard, monkey's bashing away randomly. And then they got a computer to do it, right? So there's a computer algorithm. So the idea with cumulative selection, rather than feeding it logic, you just feed it, like, basically it's just randomized, and then from the results of what it does, it can then learn and store patterns. So it starts from a blank slate, and this is how a lot of kind of AI models are trained. Very similar to natural selection. It's like throw shit at the wall, see what sticks, and then take what sticks, throw that again, see what sticks, you know, and it works, right? So it's all about using that element to test theories to see which works, and have the humility to accept the failure. Right, I'm just going to read this bit. It's going on about most people, you know, they want to do top down because they think the fucking world is simpler than it is, blah blah blah. It's going on loads of different examples here, right? And then it says, but this tendency in turn challenges the psychological dramatic of organisations and systems. The greatest difficulty that many people face, as we have seen, is that admitting to their potential failures and thus learning from them. We have looked at cognitive dissonance, did a live on that, which becomes so severe that we often reframe, spin, and sometimes even edit out our own mistakes. You know, that fear from failure, cognitive dissonance, you can blind yourself to your own lies, because you know and you'll find excuses as to why you're still right. Because people just hate failure. And there's ego. Cognitive dissonance is very much about an ego. You know, people don't want their reputation tarnished. But now it says, now think of the Unilever biologists. They didn't regard the rejected nozzles as failures. Remember, they had 449 failures. They didn't regard the rejected nozzles as failures because they were part of the parcel of how they learned. All those rejected designs were regarded as central to their strategy of cumulative selection, not as an indictment of their judgment. Isn't that important? Not as an indictment of their judgment. They would have had dozens of failures and were therefore not fazed by them. So they kind of built this in at the start. They accepted that sun's getting in my eyes. There's going to be a lot of failures, and that's part of the process. But if you set off not wanting to fail, you're going to do everything that you can to avoid it, and you're going to end up not testing things, and then maybe even using cognitive dissonance, which is terrible. Next paragraph. But when we are misled into regarding the world as simpler than it really is, we not only resist testing our top-down strategies and assumptions, we also become defensive when they are challenged by our peers or by the data. Cognitive dissonance. After all, if the world is simple, you would have to be pretty stupid not to understand it. I think that's really good. So one thing I've been considering recently, just, you know, thinking about, always try new things, but like one area, one area to test this is maybe in the creative space. So create an advert. And I was just researching yesterday meta ads and thinking, right, rather than trying to put all your thought into one ad and say, this is going to work, and then discounting others because whatever reason, that ain't going to work because the words are not right or it doesn't look good or whatever, right? Come up with a bunch of ideas, right? These like ad creatives. Come up with a bunch of ideas, right? And start them all going. Get them all going on a test budget advertising, right? Just for a few days. Don't have any preconceived opinions, because if you put too much top-down logic into it, you might screen out what could work and you don't know. The world is more complicated, remember, than we think it is. So just get a bunch of ad creatives that are reasonable, nothing crazy, but allow a bit of differentiation, and set them all going on a test budget. Then after a few days, just look at them. Look at the results. You know, what is, in terms of, like, I wrote it down here, it'd be like the conversion, wouldn't it? Right. You want to be looking for, like, we can let the machine decide and tell us actual data on which has got the best click-through rate and which has got the lowest cost per click. Basically, you're looking for a kind of balance between the two. But you can only do that when you're prepared to test a few ideas. If you're going to use top-down logic and just say, no, this is the ad, you will never know. This is the purpose of split testing. So do that, run it on loads, at least 4, maybe, I'm thinking like maybe 8. Get them all going on a short test budget. Look at the data, click-through rate, cost per click, and then just cull the rest, right, and scale the one that's working, or maybe there's 2 that are working. That's it. Oh, the book on the screen. Have a joint. Yeah. Put that book, then have a joint. Yeah, I know what you mean. Maybe. You know, I don't really drink now or anything. Yeah, it is nice to chill out if you're smoking weed or whatever you're doing, or having a drink, but I don't really do it now. Yeah. Right, anyway, that's it. Thank you very much. I'm going to shoot. Hope you like that one. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe. See you all next time. What is that notification?